Well, welcome everybody. I'm the one that gets to stand up here, hopefully click through the slides appropriately. But leadership in education in a K-12 system really starts with our locally elected school board. And this community is extraordinarily fortunate to have an incredible school board serving our students in our community. And I'd like to recognize them before I get started. First, we have President Ed Herron. We have board members Monique Limon, Gail Idelson, and Kate Parker. And really, while we're here, is for the students in our system. And we have great kids, and you've met a couple of them already. I have some other students I'd like to introduce and welcome as well. From Dos Pueblos High School, Nathan Alvarez. From San Marcos High School, Cristo Anderson. From Santa Barbara High School, Tatum Vestal. And also from Santa Barbara High School, Ben Ceballos. Thank you for being here and representing the best and the brightest that we have, and what a great future we have, not just as a community but a nation. So look forward to learning from you as you grow older and lead us in the 21st century. So thanks for being here. So, all right, well, let's get started. One of the things I really like to talk about and make sure everyone understands is that for the last 5 years, and this is the 5th year, we have had 3 goals in our district, and they have remained the same, and I hope they remain the same for a while, because while they're aspirational goals, they clearly are goals that we must attain. The first and most important goal for us as a school district is to create culturally proficient staff, classrooms, schools, and a school district. The second is to create technology learning environments in every learning space throughout our district. And the third is to implement our new content standards that we have in English language arts, math, and science. We've also been very fortunate because we have the same strategic plan for the last 4 years. And that strategic plan has 4 large goals as well. And the small goals that I just announced fit within it very well. Aim 1, that our district will create life, career, and college-ready students. And we've done a ton of work in this area already. We are working on creating K through 12 units, lessons. Our teachers are designing them. It's incredibly difficult work for them to do. I'm going to share a little bit about our rationale and why we're doing that later on. Very important. We've increased enrollment in our advanced placement classes and our advanced academic programs through some very strategic and intentional actions that we have taken as a school district that have increased the opportunities for students who traditionally have not been represented in those classes or programs. And I'll tell you how we've done that. We also have a program that Jackie introduced to you all, hopefully didn't introduce to you all, but reminded you all, and that's our PEAK program. It's great to have a PEAK table right in the middle. Our program for effective access to college, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we move along as well. Some other work that we're doing in all 3 goals was a partnership that we started this past year with the Equal Opportunity Schools, which is really a great example of a private-public partnership. It includes Google, Harvard, and the Santa Barbara Unified School District. And Equal Opportunity Schools is based on one premise and one premise only, and that is at every single high school there are students that should be in advanced placement, international baccalaureate, dual enrollment classes, but somehow are not in those classes. They have the same profile as the students who are already enrolled in those classes. And what I loved about it was the idea was that they're only 20 feet away. In other words, just across the hall. Why aren't they in those classes? Well, our partnership with them allowed us to go through a process led by our Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, Dr. Ben Drotti, and our high school principals, that we found close to 500 students who had the exact same academic profile, the exact same level of interest, the exact same level of intentionality of the students currently enrolled in those classes that somehow were not enrolled in advanced placement courses. And we put them in those courses so that those students now are in our most advanced classes. Those students now are earning college credit. Those students now see themselves as college-level students. An incredible shift in our culture, an incredible opportunity for a large group of kids that we had not done a good job for. I'm of many things I'm proud of and I get excited about in our district, but this is one of the big items. I see it as a neighborhood changer for us, a community changer. As kids come home and they say, I'm in a college class. Not in one, maybe, I'm in two. Incredible work. Very excited about that. Our gate identification and programming, we changed dramatically. Yesterday afternoon, we had our first joint board meeting with the Goleta Union School District in, I think, 30 plus years, I believe, which was fantastic. One of the things we talked about was gate in both of our districts. And what I'm very excited about is that we've changed the way that we identify our gifted students. We recognize that our previous process really was culturally biased. I mean, think about it. You have a gate identification process in a district that is predominantly Latino, but all the gifted students are white? You know, as some very smart person at the other university in Los Angeles, not the greatest university, USC, wrote, you know, it must be in the water, and only certain people drink that water. So we looked at that process and we said, we really need to identify really what true giftedness is. We did. We changed our identification process. This year, we actually identified an equal number of English language learner students as we did English-only students for GATE. Unbelievable. You know, I talk about technology all the time, and I got to tell you, my wife just cracks up because I am about as illiterate in technology. I am struggling to do this right now, change the slides. But that's not my world. It's the world of our students that are here and those that they represent back at their schools and their younger siblings. It's really the environment in which students acquire content, in which they communicate, in which they collaborate. We have started what I think is just a fantastic initiative, our iLearn initiative, under the direction of our Chief Education Technology Officer, Mr. Todd Rickman, along with some incredible teachers on how we can really integrate technology into everything that we do, because it is the place where kids go. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then professional learning. We have decided that in order for our students to get to where they need to go, we need the best teachers and we need the best trained teachers. And we learned something. It only took me about 20 plus years to figure this out. Teachers learn best from each other. Watching each other teach, discovering and talking, collaborating, communicating about what worked, what didn't work. So we've invested a lot of time and money in getting teachers together intentionally to talk about their very important work, how they assess students, what their expectations are, and we will continue to do so. Our second aim, which is very important, is to ensure that we are including our stakeholders and engaging them to the greatest extent possible. Our students, our families, and our communities. And this is a very generous community, not just with money, but with their time. It's really the reason why I came back to Santa Barbara, was to be in this community because it is so extraordinary. It's not like this in other places. I know because I've been there. We know that we have to engage our students and our staff in making sure we're culturally proficient. All of our schools have been charged with the task of creating no student anonymous strategies. What is the worst thing that can happen to a kid in our system? They go through their day, they go home, parent says, how was school today? It was okay. Anybody hear that before? What'd you do today? Nothing. Anyone hear that from their kid? Yeah, I don't let my 6th grader tell me that, but I think she'd like to tell me that. We can't have any student spend their day without having a significant contact with an adult, without having an adult look at the student and say, hey, I know you, Christo. I know you're the ASB president. I know that you like to do this. I know. That has to happen. When I talk to kids, it has been the same since I started as a teacher. And when I say, what is the most important thing about school? Who are the best teachers at your school? They have said the same thing to me. It's a teacher that knows who I am and a teacher that cares about me. That is what matters the most to our kids. If those two things happen, the sky's the limit. Kids will do whatever it takes to please their teachers and to be with people that they know and they know them. We know how important it is to engage our families and all of our families. Thanks to some incredible action by a resource in our community, Padres Unidos, we looked at how we should engage our families in a very different way. And in fact, we created a position that doesn't exist in most districts throughout the state, and that's the Director of English Learner Services and Parent Engagement. And we have a wonderful director of that, Dr. Jackie Mora, who's in charge of that. I love that because it intentionally states to ourselves internally and to our community that we know how important it is to engage parents in the work that we're doing. And parent engagement isn't just sending home a flyer, hey, we got this event, we expect you to come, and then when they don't show up, concluding, well, they must really not care about the school or they really don't care about education. I can tell you quite frankly that 25 years ago, that's what we would have done. We would have consistently, and we did, ignore the wishes, the needs, the wants, the desires of a large segment of our parents, and thus our students as well. We know we need to get out in the community, we need to engage them in a way that is thoughtful and in a way that they want to be engaged. And I'm excited every school, for the first time that I can recall, is creating a specific action plan on how they will engage all of their parents in the important work of educating their children. Like I said, technology learning environments, we believe that's another way that we're engaging our community. We have a very robust one-to-one iPad program in 4 of our schools that we're very excited about. The results so far are just off the chart as far as participation, as far as engagement by students, by staff, and by families. And finally, we really are looking at, actually I found out yesterday from Mr. Rickman, beyond what we call the SAMR model as a way of engaging our students and our parents in technology. And SAMR, I'm going to wonk you out for just a second on technology, so excuse me, stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. I should have asked Mr. Rickman, he could probably say it better. What we want is not just to have technology be a substitute for what we already have, just a more expensive pencil, more expensive pad of paper, more expensive whiteboard. We also want it to be more than just modifying. What we really want is to get all the way to R, which is where we have our students using technology to do things that simply aren't possible to do without the use of technology. And that's where we need to go. And we think we're doing that. We heard some great examples of it in our joint meeting yesterday that, I was amazed. The question got asked, well, how do you know it's working? Teachers got up and just boom, boom, these are the things we're doing. It was really incredible. Very, very exciting. So more specific actions we're doing in relationship to our AIM 2 is that we're continuing to meet with parent groups in our community. I meet with parent groups each year, and I have a whole host of community groups I love to meet with. I get great input on what's working, what's not working. We are expanding our PEAK program. I really want to recognize Dr. Patricia Madrigal as our point person for PEAK. She and Joanne Keynes and Ed Behrens at San Marcos High School have created a model of success where 100% of those students got admitted to college. 100% of the graduates. And those are students who, starting in 7th grade, didn't even dream of the opportunity of going to college. Now are all in college. This year, we expanded our PEAK program over to the east side. It had been primarily in La Cumbre and San Marcos. This year it's at Santa Barbara Junior High School, Franklin, and Santa Barbara High School. And thanks to the incredible donation of Santa Barbara Foundation, we are now able to expand Peak to every single secondary school in our district. So every student is going to have that opportunity. It is unbelievable. The level of parent engagement in that Peak program is off the chart. That we require ourselves to ensure that every parent has an opportunity to learn about it, to learn about how they can support their children, not just in school, but on to any post-high school, which for all of our students is college. What is fascinating is that we went from a cohort of about 35 students, and we have one of our first cohort students sitting here, one of the bravest souls on the planet, to every single student now that meets the criteria for being in Peak, and I believe it's between 80 and 100. What is it, Alpha?
200 now.
200 students at San Marcos High School. That up to this point did not envision their future as including college education, but now it most definitely does. Not only do they dream it, they are making it a reality. And that is unbelievable. Just imagine that 5 years from now, the game changer that will be for our community. Not just for all of us, but for the neighborhoods those kids live in, their siblings, their younger children, and how that will change the trajectory, just not of their families, but of our community. It is fantastic. We also have this LCAP process. I'm going to talk more about that, but we are required to engage our community in the LCAP, which is the Local Control Accountability Plan, which tells us how we spend our money. And what I love about the LCAP is that we used to, and I was a principal for a long time, we used to always tell parents, hey, tell us how to spend the money. And some of you heard me say this, and then we'd say, hey, thank you very much, and we'd just do whatever we thought was best. But now we really have to, not just ask, but we either have to do it, or we have to explain why we're not doing it, and how we're going to do something else that meets that, whatever the need the parent has identified. What a shift. What a shift. Really, really cool. Our aim 3 is transforming our organization. And I can't imagine a more important goal. And it's probably the most nebulous goal. Or, you think about it, wow, organizational transformation. That could just mean just about anything. For us, it really goes around 2 of our most important goals, and that's cultural proficiency and technology learning environments. Imagine that the most important thing in your life is your children. I mean, it is for me. I'm a parent. And yet, you have not mastered the dominant language in the community in which you live, English. And you want more than anything else to get your children to where they want to go and where you'd like to see them. But you can't speak the dominant language in your community. Imagine how frustrating that would be. Imagine what that would be like. You would quickly do everything you could to learn that language, but in the meantime, you couldn't communicate with the people who were in charge of ensuring that your child got whatever they needed to be successful. Well, one of the things we've done is flipped that and said every school, starting with the school district, and you saw it this morning, has to ensure that every parent has access, regardless of their primary language, to what's happening in our schools and in our community. And that language itself should not be a barrier to parents getting the information they need and then doing what they need in order to support their children. All right, ADA, over there. Another way that we've transformed our organization is our work with Just Communities. And what an incredible jewel Santa Barbara has, Just Communities. We, with Just Communities, and Jared Swartz is here, their director, have developed a 3-year equity plan that we are rolling out that includes things like access based on language. It includes things like creating culturally proficient classrooms. It includes things like understanding how best to provide content to support students that come from different backgrounds than what our system is based on. It has been transformative work that has occurred. I had a teacher last night. I chaired our first homework and grading committee. I don't know that I don't ever recall having one when I was a principal. Very eclectic group of parents and students, and I thought it was a lot of fun. But I had a teacher afterwards say, you know, I just went to IEE this summer, which is the Institute for Equity in Education that Just Communities does with our district. And he said to me, he goes, he's a physics teacher at Santa Barbara High, and he said, the most important thing that we can do in homework and grading is to really address the equity issues. He said, and that's something I wouldn't have thought of if I hadn't gone through IEE. I thought, wow, all right. We are transforming our organization. In technology learning environments, very important. Really want to thank our Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, Meg Jate, who's in the back of the room. She knows how loud I talk. I've known her the longest, so she's far, far away from me. She has done an incredible job at making our budget process as transparent as it possibly could be with the California Department of Education, and really putting it in layperson's terms so that it is more easy to understand. And I know that helps transform our organization. Very, very, very good. I believe our number one transformative event is really our focus on learning. We really know that while great lessons are important and good learning can't occur without them, that if we need to spend our time focusing on student learning, student achievement, that really is important for us. And I always ask the question in relationship to technology, well, what are our classrooms going to look like 10 years from now? It's hard for me to believe that they're going to look the same that they do now. I hope and pray that they do not. Because kids, the business world, the world we live in, isn't based on some didactic relationship where there's an adult talking to 34 kids sitting in rows of 6. Passively taking notes. It's much more interactive, much, much, much more collaborative, and I'm confident that our classrooms are going to look like that and reflect that reality as we move forward. Some more specific things we've done in relationship to transforming our organization is we've really done a tremendous amount of work in the recruitment strategies we have for human resources. One of the most important things we can do is make sure that we put in the classrooms the best possible teachers in the world, the best possible teachers in the world. And part of the best, that definition, includes teachers who can speak Spanish, teachers who may have grown up in Santa Barbara, and teachers who really see their work as putting students at the center, as opposed to their content. What we want are teachers to say, when asked, I teach students. Not, I teach math. What do you do? I'm a teacher at Santa Barbara High. What do you teach? Well, I teach kids all day long. Oh. Well, what do you teach them? Well, math. There is a subtle, but I think very important difference in that orientation. And that's what we look for. We've done a great job. Our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mitch Tarina, is here. And Mitch is a classic story of why that's so important that we get kids from our community to rise up. Franklin, Santa Barbara Junior, once a Don, always a Don, Santa Barbara High School. And back now leading our district in human resources. We have spent a lot of time in restorative approaches in our district. Really want to thank Lito Garcia, another kid that grew up in our system, now a leader at Santa Barbara Junior High School. His school really took the idea of our interactions with students to heart and created what we now call restorative approaches, which is a way for us as a system to work with students, children, who make mistakes. I don't know about you guys, but when I was in high school, I was not perfect. I made mistakes. I lost my cool. I maybe was late to class. I maybe didn't pay attention at times. I might have been disruptive. I might have said some stuff under my breath that I regretted later. I made mistakes. Children are going to make mistakes. It's what we do as adults in response to that that makes the difference. Our previous system was, you make a mistake, see ya, you're out of the classroom. Exclusion, boom. And if it's a big mistake, you're not just out of the classroom, you're out of school. And if it's a really big mistake, you're not just out of the classroom, out of the school, you're out of the district. Good luck, buddy. See ya. Instead, what we are doing is trying to find out what caused the mistake, or what's going on in your life as a student. What is really happening here? And that process helps us develop respect between our students and our adults, lets our students know that we're really interested in them, we have them at the center of our work, and that it's not about exclusion. Now, I got to tell you, excluding kids is an easier thing to do as an adult. It's much easier just to say, whoa, I don't like what you're saying, I don't like what you're doing, this is my classroom, I'm in charge of the space. Mr. Carbo, I'll see you later. I'm sure that never happened to you. Well, actually, I'm not so certain that never happened to you. That's an easy thing to do as an adult. That's an easy way to manage your space, is to just say, so long, see you, all of you that are still here, we will learn together. That other, guy, he's out of here, all right, let's forget about him. It's much more difficult for staff to take the time, excuse me, to find out, well, what's going on? Why did that happen? What did I do? What's my ownership as the teacher? Was there something I said, what I said when you walked in the room, what triggered that sort of response? That is very difficult, and we're asking our classroom teachers to do that. That's transformative work. Not easy, very difficult. But it is being implemented across all of our secondary schools and now many of our elementary schools as well. We also have transformed our organization in our secondary schools through something called Talking in Class, which is another thing that Just Communities has helped us to implement. And Talking in Class, imagine this. You ask high school kids, what do you think about what's happening in your schools? What are some of the issues that you face? And then as adults, you don't respond, you sit and listen carefully as the students tell you what their experience is like. Let you know whether or not that experience is meeting their needs, whether that experience is helpful to them, hurtful to them. It's the program or the process is called Talking in Class, and that's what the students do. From the adult's perspective, it's learning how to listen to our students and then do something about it. And we're doing that. That is transforming our secondary schools as teachers sit down in a very, very non-threatening environment, and students very bravely get up and say to teachers, this is what my experience has been like as a student in your school. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great, but it's extraordinarily important for us to get that student voice, to understand how we can improve the work that we know we need to do. I've talked a little bit about equal opportunity schools. The last thing I want to say is our teacher-led work and content standards implementation. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, but I do want to tell you that we have made the decision to take advantage of who we consider to be our experts in content and instruction, and that's our teachers. And ask them to engage in thoughtful and difficult work, but nevertheless to engage in it, and that is to create the work that they expect students to do each day in their classroom around our new content standards. Very, very difficult work, but very important. We have an underlying bias as to why we're doing that, and I'll share that with you in a second. Our last aim is facilities. All of our work's related to our 3 goals. We've completed our facility master plan. The board received that about a month and a half ago. We developed a very robust and detailed maintenance, repair, and renovation plan. We are in the midst of developing a project prioritization list of future capital projects that we'd like to engage in. And I'm very happy to report that our 2010 bond, where our community so generously gave us money to improve our facilities, we're not only under budget, but we're way ahead of schedule in completing all of those projects. Again, I want to thank Meg Jate, our Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, also Kelly Coltrup, our construction management firm, Joe Wilcox is here, one of our architects, for doing great work in supporting our learning environments at all of our schools. So the dominant theme still remains change. And it's incredible the amount of change we are expected to do. These three things I didn't make up. I make up a lot of stuff. Those of you that have worked with me, we have Michelle Hughes who worked with me for many years, knows that. These all came from the state of California. The local control funding formula, the local control accountability plan, and implementing 3 new content standards. I mean, new standards in math. That's easy, right? New standards in English language arts and science. We don't get to do them, like once every 5 years. We're doing them all now. So imagine you're a classroom teacher. You have to digest all this new stuff. There's a new way in which we get money. It's not the same way as it has been. And there's a new way that we're being held accountable. Totally different. Very, very significant changes. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about all of them. I've talked about them before. Local control funding formula, it's the way we get money now. We used to get money in a bunch of little buckets. Now we get it in one big giant pot. And the real cool premise is, oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
The real cool premise is that our locally elected school board, who you met, gets to make the decisions on how that money gets spent, as opposed to Sacramento. That is a great construct. Something important to know is that we're not fully funded. The way they did it is they roll it out over 8 years. I always love that. Hey, in 8 years, school districts will get you to where you were in 2007 and 8. 2021, is that right, Ms. Jate? We'll be back to 2008, only 13 years later. But I'm not going to complain about that. I'm excited that we're moving in the right direction, which is really, really good. Instead, they fund what they call the gap, and that's a highly technical term, but what's really important is that is that we are not fully funded, and we won't be for several more years. Inequities still exist all across the board. The idea was to create a more equitable system, but I'm just going to tell you point blank, specifically in the South, in our county, with basic aid districts, and I'm not saying eliminate basic aid, that isn't part of this. We have districts that get anywhere from $24,000 per student to $8,000 per student. That is a significant inequity. Huge. The ultimate irony of that is that the systems that need the most money, the systems that have urban areas like Santa Barbara, get the least amount of money. I'll say it again. The systems that need the most money, that are all urban, get the least amount. Not complaining though. 30 parts to the local control funding formula. We get a base grant, we get X number of dollars per kid, we get a supplemental grant. Money follows kids. I'll tell you which kind. And if we had 55% of our students met a specific criteria, we would get additional funds. Now, that is a district-wide criteria, and I've cried about this, and I am going to complain about this, and I think this has to change, because that's based on a district average, and most most districts in California are very similar to Santa Barbara as far as how schools are segregated. Unfortunately, it's a nightmare. We have schools in Santa Barbara that have 10% poverty, and we have schools that have 100% poverty. Yet, when it's all rolled in together, we're at 54%, 54.8%, not quite to 55%. And those schools that have 100% poverty get no concentration grant money. That's a mistake. That should have changed, but it didn't. Our local control accountability plan, another huge change. I still believe it is the potential for the biggest reform. And I see Susan Salcido, our deputy superintendent for the county ed, and I said this in front of a group of teachers this summer. I mean, the plans 2 years ago, our plan was 24 pages, I think, Dr. Dradi, 24 pages. And it went to over 170 pages. And I heard some are over 400 pages. And Susan's office has to read every one. I just thought, God bless you. It's a lot of reading of LCAPs. If we can get back to a focus really on what we're doing in the plan as opposed to making the plan just a compliance document, I think we'll be good. Here's the irony of the local control accountability plan. The 8-state California priorities. So yes, school districts, it's local, but you must address the priorities that the state has identified. Fortunately, those priorities are ones we would identify and we would want to look at as a school district anyway. We have to actually look at data, we have to have actions for improvement, and the money follows the student. And the students that the money follows are our students who are English learners, our students that live in poverty, and our foster youth in our community. Another huge change. Now, luckily there isn't so much in this community, and that's a lot of text, I understand that. So I'm going to read it. And then I'm going to ask you a question. If there's anyone in this room that doesn't want their child or their nephew or niece or grandchild to be able to do this. Explain and apply mathematical concepts and interpret and carry out mathematical procedures with precision and fluency. That sound good? Solve a range of complex, well-poised problems in pure and applied mathematics, making productive use of knowledge and problem-solving strategies. Sound good? Clearly and precisely construct viable arguments to support their own reasoning and critique the reasoning of others. Analyze complex, real-world scenarios and construct and use mathematical models to interpret and solve problems. That's the Common Core. I don't know anybody that doesn't look at that and say, geez, if my kid could do that, that would be awesome. That's math. Let's look at English language arts and see how you feel about that. Read closely and analytically to comprehend a range of increasingly complex literary and informational text. Produce effective and well-grounded writing for a range of purposes and audiences. Employ effective speaking and listening skills for a range of purposes and audiences. Engage in research and inquiry to investigate topics and to analyze, integrate, and present information. Anybody wants to get in your grill about the Common Core, rip off those two slides and ask them that question. Won't we want our kids to do this? I do. So, a lot of change, especially in the content standards. And by its nature, it is not a textbook-driven curriculum. It is no way. I mean, you look at those things. A textbook is two-dimensional. It's flat. Once it's published, it's out of date. Think about it. The only thing that's not out of date would be a history text. But then it would be out of date in relationship to modern history. I mean, one of my favorite stories is that, walk into a U.S. history class and the students think they can't understand who this President Obama is because their book tells them the president's Bill Clinton. So, by its very nature, it's complex and it is not textbook driven. It's interdisciplinary. Literacy is emphasized across everywhere now, which is very important. It's integrated. Math and science. Engineering is an essential part of our science, our next generation science standards. And we need to have common formative assessments in order for us to understand how our students are moving. And collaboration is required because it is a big change. So we've made significant changes in our school day. We have an early release, a late start. We have seminars in our high schools. We have Royal Time at San Marcos High School. We had to change our day and the way that our teachers interact with themselves in order to ensure there's time for collaboration, in order to ensure there's enough time for them to do what they need to do. Critical thinking and application, reading in every subject, it looks different. It can't be the same. So we have to ask ourselves, how could teaching and learning be the same when the world is so different? How can we do that? How could we continue to offer kids the very flat, two-dimensional way of acquiring knowledge when no one in this room acquires knowledge, or very few of us in that manner today? There's competition now. It's not just within our neighborhood, within our district. We all know this. It's across our community, across our state, across our nation. It's across the world. There's more English speakers, you all know this, in India than there is in the United States. It is a highly competitive world. And ultimately, from me, the Common Core is a matter of social justice. I believe that the Common Core implementation and the next generation science standards are based upon a model that aligns very clearly with the direction we're heading in Santa Barbara Unified School District, and that's ensuring every child gets every chance every day. So why is change necessary and so difficult? We have huge historical issues in opportunity and achievement. Huge historical issues in opportunity and achievement. Haves, have-nots. It's hard to change that. The world is not the same. We have to face the issues head on. Somebody has to say at some point, kids are what matter the most. Not the adults in the system, it's kids. It's these 4 kids right here. That's why we should go to work every day. It's to ensure they get what they need in order for them to be successful, for them to have the future, not just for themselves, but for our country. And there are huge technical changes. You got to know how to use technology. You have to know what the Common Core is. But there are big adaptive changes as well. And we have to change the way what we believe in, what we value, and how we respond to those changes. We have to look at the world as a place where every child has the same opportunity as my kid. That's not easy. Here are some results. A dropout rate. That sucks. Horrible. That represents kids that started with us in 9th grade, that for whatever reason, and there are a lot, by the time that their peers got to graduation in June in 12th grade, they weren't there. AP passage rates, that's awesome. Those are good results right there, folks. And that represents about 1,500 tests taken. It's a lot of students earning college credit right there. Very, very, very good. Happy, happy, happy with that. Attendance rate. Here's something that Ms. Jate is very happy with. 95.5% of our students are attending school each and every day. Way above the state average. The state has now decided that 90% is going to be adequate across the state. But that just blows me away. So it's okay to have 10% of your students be absent every day? Maybe if you had a large class of 35 kids, 10% would be good, but that's a lot of students not at school each and every day. We're way above that average. Some schools are way above that average. That's a good thing. One of the most important things that's happened in the last 5 years, something that I am going to take with me wherever I go, and as far as happiness, and that is reclassification of English learners. I have to tell you that this is one of the most important things that we're doing, is ensuring that our students who speak English as a second language have the opportunity through reclassification to begin entering an A through G college readiness track. And this past academic year, we had over 1,000 of our students that were reclassified as fluent English proficient. And that is incredible, as compared to 377 the year before. That represents hard work by classroom teachers each and every day, ensuring that those students acquire the English language skills that allow them to be reclassified in order for them to get ready for college. That is incredible. Very, very happy with that. Another great one, SAT scores. We pretty much dominate the state and the county. Those are great scores. Super, super, super good scores. Not good enough, though, from our perspective. The one incredible thing that's happened as well is that every school has increased the number of students taking the SAT and the number that they receive has not gone down. It continued to rise. Good job, high schools, elementary schools, junior high schools. One of the things I wanted to share with you is suspension rates, because this is a direct result of the work we're doing in restorative approaches. And these represent the percentage of students that have been suspended from school. Very, very small. Those are our elementary schools. Here's our secondary schools. Small, small, small numbers. Very, very proud of that. What that translates to, remember, is that instead of kids being out of school, out of class, in their neighborhood, they're in class, learning. So, all right, things we're excited about. You ready to hear these? Hold on to your hats. Here we go. We're very excited about early child education work that we're doing. Very, very, very excited about it. Our Kindergarten Readiness Network, we now have an incredible partnership with preschools, early childhood education centers throughout our community that are connecting with our school district, so that we have a real smooth transition from a preschool experience into our transitional kindergarten to grade 12 system. We are also on the verge of creating a 0 to 5 family engagement network, where we hope that what we envision will be anytime a child is born at Cottage Hospital, they are surrounded by a group of caring and supportive community members, one of which will be an educator from the Santa Barbara Unified School District that will work with families to ensure that those families understand the developmental milestones and what needs to happen as that child goes through 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Welcome to Santa Barbara Unified School District, either preschool or transitional kindergarten programs. Much, much, much higher level and readiness to learn. Peak, very excited about that. You've heard all about it. We can't believe how great it's going to be to have every single secondary student in our system, across our system, have the access to college. And our specialized programs, man, you all know them. In our elementary schools, we have Montessori at Adams Elementary School. An incredible program, multi-graded, super, super fun. I always love going there. It's great to see older kids working with younger kids. We have our Gate Magnet at Washington Elementary School, another elementary school program. We have our Core Knowledge program at the Santa Barbara Community Academy. Another wonderful program with emphasis on some real cultural skills and literacy. At our secondary schools, we have, as you all know, academies, specialized learning programs across our system. Each high school has some unbelievable opportunities for students, starting with the Dos Pebbles Engineering Academy, the Health Academy, Entrepreneurship Academy, the International Baccalaureate at Dos Pebbles High School, the Computer Science Academy at Santa Barbara High School, the Apple Academy at San Marcos High School. It is incredible what kids get an opportunity to really dive deep into in our specialized programs in our high school. And our visual and performing arts are off the chart. And this past year, we've started with a new director for visual and performing arts. We have had an unbelievable partnership with a great community friend, ICANN, and Jeffrey Walker. I thought I saw him earlier. I think he's here. All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. Where 8 of our elementary schools have the opportunity to have really awesome visual art each and every day that helps complement our already robust visual art programs that we have in our secondary schools. And our performing arts, I would really encourage each and every one of you to make sure you spend some time and go to any of our secondary school performing arts performances. Another thing that we're excited about is our technology learning environments. I believe we've deployed several thousand mobile devices throughout our school district and schools across the way, ensuring that students have access to content, they have a way to collaborate, they have a way to communicate, all of the things that we know will be important in the 21st century. We have teacher-led curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment changes. Our bias is that we know better than New York City. I'm going to say it again, that we know better than New York City. When I was an assistant superintendent, I had an opportunity to be involved in some research. I went back to New York where all the major publishers have offices and met with their editing teams. The editing teams that create the textbooks, the instructional materials, the $12 billion industry that exists in our nation. And kind of went through how they make their decisions. It's made on a very simple mathematical concept, the least common denominator. I don't know about you, but I don't want my kid or my kids in our schools' instruction to be based on the least common denominator. What I want it to be based on is what do we know what's best for kids based upon what we know here in Santa Barbara. Very, very excited about that. And I'm also very excited about our continued focus on students through restorative approaches, our equal opportunity schools. Why is that so important, our reclassification? It is so important because we now have 1,000 students in our system that have the opportunity to and will engage in college preparatory classes, A through G classes in our high schools, so that they too and their families have a choice in determining whether they're going to go to college, as opposed to getting to the end of high school and still not being able to have that choice. I predict that this is an ongoing trend for us. I'm going to challenge our system to reclassify as many students as possible. And again, that cannot happen without great work by classroom teachers each and every day in their classrooms. Super, super good stuff. I'm very excited about our implementation of our Justice and Equity Plan. That work, I think, it's our #1 goal, cultural proficiency. That work will change what's happening. If our students come to school each and every day and inhabit a space and interact with adults that value and respect and admire who they are, the neighborhoods they came from, the culture that their families have imbued in them each and every day in their homes, great things will happen. Teaching the content standards is going to be a piece of cake if kids feel like that when they come to school. There can be no greater work for us than ensuring that we have justice and equity across our system. Nothing is more important than that. We have changed the face and the perspective of the adults in our system. I'm very excited about that. I shared with you we've changed our recruitment strategies as far as who we're hiring. I think we've hired over the last 3 years about 20 former students as teachers in our district. It is incredible to be able to do that. I interview every teacher candidate that gets to the final stage. I have them do a lesson in my conference room in front of me. I always tell them, I know this is kind of strange, you know, you're one student class and it's me, the superintendent. You have to pretend I'm a first grader. That may not be so hard. And it's just been joyful hearing people say, well, you know, when I say, well, I don't, I'll be very frank and tell you, I don't shake everybody's hand and say, you're hired. But those that I do, and I say, and you're going to Harding Elementary School, and I'll never forget one student looked at me, and she started to cry. She said, that's where I went to elementary school. This is so cool. I get to go back to Harding. Unbelievable. That has been really transformative work for us as an organization. We hope to continue to do that. We also know that changing the perspective of our adults in the system remains very, very important. We have to have every adult that interacts with a student understand that that interaction is going to form the basis of that student's level of interest and motivation in doing whatever us as the adults want them to do. And so that interaction needs to be positive, needs to be respectful, and needs to recognize the differences in our students and in our community. We're excited about developing our common formative assessment. We're very excited about our facilities work. We've done work that we just simply hadn't done in decades in relationship to understanding the true nature of our needs in our district. We have 4 historical schools in our district: La Cumbre, Santa Barbara Junior, Santa Barbara High School, and McKinley. Those are jewels. They would be in any community. In our community, they're extraordinarily important. We really need to make sure that they remain such. And we're engaged in great work, I believe, in completing the identified projects from the 2010 bond measure and identifying what we need to do in the future. Really excited about our budget. My goodness, through great leadership by the board members that I introduced earlier, we now have a budget reserve, which is great for a rainy day. We need that. We've done a good job at sharpening our pencil. Want to congratulate again Meg Jeté for doing all the detailed work in that. And that's going to make a huge difference for kids, not just this year, but in the future. I'm very excited about our parent engagement strategies that I've talked about. And the last thing I want to mention that I'm very excited about is our food service. This past summer, we fed over 35,000 meals free to our community through our food services department. Think about that. Those are meals to families, kids, parents who would not have had that meal if not for food services from the Santa Barbara Unified School District. That's just awesome. And we have a mobile catering program, which not only engages our food services department with our community, but it's based on the idea of scratch cooking, where we're not going to provide you with pre-packaged food. We're going to give you organic, locally sourced, made in our kitchen meals for our students, for our staff, and our families. I think that's just fantastic. I don't know about you, but when I have been well fed, hopefully you were this morning, we could take on the world, and that's what we need to do. So what's next for us? Very briefly. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I do need to talk about this. I'm very excited about our staff, our support staff. We have great classified employees that are supporting our learning each and every day. We have great teachers, great counselors, great support people throughout our classrooms, everywhere, doing great work. One of my joys is to be out in classrooms. I was at La Colina, Santa Barbara Junior this week, walking into classrooms, seeing great work being done, looking at kids engaged, even though it was hotter than Hades in both of those schools. If you know a teacher, buy them a fan and tell them that you are a fan of their work. I'm also very excited about the leadership in our district, our school board. I'm so lucky. I'm the chair of a couple of superintendent organizations. One's a national organization, the other's a local California one. And when I am at those meetings and I talk to my colleagues, what I hear a lot of is complaining about this board member has this agenda, this board member only cares about this. We have a board that has no agenda except for what do we need to do that's best for kids in our community. That is unreal. And I also really am excited about our district level staff. Yeah, I hired most of them, so, But I am so excited about who they are, the energy that they bring, the incredible diverse perspectives that they bring to all of the thought that we're engaged in each and every week. The problem solving that they do is unbelievable. I have a very loud voice. I'm kind of like a bull in a china shop sort of guy. But you should be in our cabinet meetings, man. People just point their finger at me and tell me I'm an idiot. And that's so important for an organization like ours to have such a dynamic leadership team, so willing to be focused on not their career or pleasing their boss, but focused on the work at hand. And that's what you have and we have here in Santa Barbara. It's incredible. Great leadership at our schools. People ask me, well, how did the start of the year go? And I can say, I have not said this, you haven't heard me say this in the other times I've done this presentation, this has been the best year starting, except for the heat, which has been unremitting and a nightmare. But the best start of the school year because we have the right people in the right places doing the work. It's been unreal. And we have some of the best teachers on the planet. I would ask each and every one of you to take 30 minutes out of a busy day, call up a principal and say, "Hi, I'm Dave. I'd really like an opportunity to just see what's happening at your school," and have that principal take you into some of the classrooms. You will be blown away at what transformative work our teachers are doing with kids each and every day. That is something to be excited about. So what's next for us? We're going to stay the course on our goals: cultural proficiency, technology learning environments, and implementing the content standards. Very, very important. And we want to continue to seek input from our community about any other changes that you think we need to engage in. We're going to seek input from our community on our facilities, and we really want input on what services we can provide students that we're currently not providing them, that are necessary for us to meet the needs of every child. We're going to continue to innovate. Two incredible things happening right now. I mean, if you take me up, go to Adams, go to Washington, elementary schools. Adams just opened a brand new library and a design lab. Incredible. Washington just opened up a brand new library and a STEM lab. You want to see some great stuff that TK through 6 kids are doing? I mean, that's an easy pickings. Go to those two schools and you will be just blown away. It's not your kids or your elementary school experience, and it shouldn't be. And that's two great places to go. Or go visit our community centers. I mean, that is about as innovative as you can get, where we have taken two sites, LaCoumba on the west side, Franklin on the east side, and made them the centers of those communities where all kinds of services come together to support families and to support students. And we know now with Peak expanding to Goleta, we'll be doing the same thing somewhere in Goleta. We're kind of honing in on where that might be, next year we'll be able to let you know where that is in Goleta. And then finally, we really want to know what you think. What kind of things do you think we need to be working on? What is it that you didn't hear me talk about that you're curious about? And we welcome that. We know that our schools in our community are your schools. We want to be a part of our community, not apart from our community. And in order to do that, we have to engage our community. So your input is extraordinarily important. And the last thing that I would say is, please, next year, join us, because we're going to celebrate our 150th anniversary as a school district. Woo! I mean, just think about that, 150 years. I'm almost halfway there. 150 years as a school district. That's an incredible legacy for our community. And lastly, I want to thank you all for coming out this morning. I appreciate your support of our schools, our school district, and most importantly, our children, our students. They must remain the center of our focus. That is hard work. There's a lot of people that will pull at that and tell you, no, pay attention more to this. But I would urge all of us in the room to stay focused on the needs of our children, because their needs are the future, and we need a bright future. And I believe that if we give them what they need, they will do whatever it takes to make the 21st century the greatest century in the history of our world. So thank you very much for coming this morning. All right. Woo-hoo.